Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. I am happy to have Automotive Seminars as a sponsor for the show. Now, if you're not familiar, Automotive Seminars is a diagnostic technician training company. They've got a website that there'll be a link to in the show notes. And what they offer is top-notch training to technicians like us in the field. I've been taking their training courses for years and have got a ton of benefit out of it. They've got top-notch instructors, John Thornton, Scott Shotton, Scott Manna, and every other month they've got a 2-night course that you can sign up for. Join in, ask questions, and afterwards, you've paid for the course, you can access a recorded version whenever you want. You can rewatch the class 2 years later in case you wanted some details on it. And that is a fantastic feature. So make sure to check out the website to see what courses they have available and what's coming up in the future. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tippy, and I'll be your host once again for this week's episode. Thank you so much for joining me. On the show today, I've got a guest, Darrell Talastas. Darrell is a diagnostic technician out in Maryland. He also owns a company, Darrell Diagnostics, that creates and 3D prints custom cables and VCI mounts, and he actually does some custom work too that we'll talk about. But I had ordered some of these VCI mounts to manage my VCM3, my VI3, my Cardac, my MDI2, all the pass-throughs I use for programming, and I have all my stuff in a van, and it makes these things really easy to store and then grab. And so anyways, I had been using them. I really liked them. So I wanted to get Darrell on the show so he could talk about his products, what he does, and how he got into it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Darrell's a really cool guy. We'll talk about music too as well. He's in a band, plays the drums. So really fun conversation. I enjoyed it. I think you will too. With that out of the way, let's jump in. So I bought that music off of some website when I first started this, where you could like license a short piece of music, and I was like clicking through them, and a lot of them were like really super lame, and I don't know, just more instrumental and keyboards and stuff. I'm like, this sucks.
Well,
okay.
The Train by Text intro is actually I let them use one of my things I made.
Oh, no
Like
kidding.
if you listen to, I don't know if they're still using it, but for a while they were using one of my like in an older band I had, like an instrumental that we like never did anything with. I was like, hey, if you guys are looking for some like music, I've got some I can send you. So they were using it for a while. I don't know. I haven't watched any of their videos as of late, so I don't know if they're still using it. But I thought that was kind of funny.
That's awesome. No, I remember like there's like a guitar riff to open those up. It's pretty cool. So that's awesome. Yeah. So you're in a band, or you have a band, or what do you do there?
Yeah, I played music. It's funny how like I guess like my background, because like I've always played music. I actually left the auto industry for like 6 or 7 years to pursue music, and I did that. I worked in retail. I was a manager at Guitar Center for a long time, and then my grandfather's worked at Toyota for a really long, like 30 years. So I ended up going back to Toyota when I went back to the auto industry. That was interesting.
So you were in a band. Like, did you guys like go somewhere? Like I know nothing about the music industry, but like I hear of a lot of people like, hey, we're gonna go to Nashville or we're gonna go to LA to try to. Is
No,
that
I
how
mean
that works? Or
like I grew up in like Northern Virginia.
okay,
I live in Maryland now, but I met some guy, some like one of my friends was like, "Hey, you want to?" They're looking for a drummer, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I play drums." So I just went and jammed with them and played, and then just wrote music, kept on going, kept on playing shows, and then we went on um, a couple like East Coast tours, like up and down, a couple dates on this festival called Warp Tour. We did that.
oh damn, okay,
Yeah, we did that for like 2 or 3 weeks,
cool,
and then when that kind of dried up, I think I ended up moving to Richmond, Virginia, and I was still working at Guitar Center, and
okay,
I met my my now wife there. Uh, I actually met her like through shows and stuff like that. And then I was like, man, I'm not making any money at Guitar Center. And I was like, man, I'm gonna, go back to working on cars because that's what I started at like a long time, like in 2000, like well, just out of high school. I
okay,
worked at I worked at a Goodyear for a really long time. 1 year at GM before they
sure.
screwed before they screwed me over. Uh,
Uh,
so when they went bankrupt or whatever, or filed for bankruptcy.
oh yeah, I suppose that was what right around like 2008 or so.
Yeah, 2008, I was working at a GM dealer in Alexandria, Virginia, and I got laid off, and I was only there for like probably not even maybe a year, not even it's been a long time. And like after that, like I said, man, I'm not working on cars anymore. Like the tool cart I had got locked up inside, and I couldn't find anyone to get a hold of to get back into the shop. So I have no clue where that tool cart is. Luckily,
Oh man.
I was able to take all my tools out of it when I left, but I had like a small car at the time and couldn't get back over there with like another job and everything like that. It was kind of
Oh
crazy.
man. Yeah. Yeah, that, that is wild. And that was a crazy time. I was in the independent world in a shop at that period, and so like we didn't have the dealership effect, but like we didn't know how everything was going to turn out, and it worked out okay for the independent. The like
Well, it was a weird
recession was actually good for
situation
us.
because I left Goodyear. I was there for a really long time. I was an
Okay.
apprentice, but like at the same time, I was like pursuing music at the time. So like I wasn't really like paying much attention. Um, but I ended up going to GM. I left Goodyear to go to GM, and I was an alignment guy there, which was like really weird because most dealerships don't have like a dedicated alignment guy, but they hired
Hmm.
me for that, and it was just a weird situation. Like it felt
Okay.
like a lot of like tension there.
Huh.
So yeah, I don't know what they were trying to do, but then the shop shut down. So
Didn't have to worry about the tension anymore.
I guess not.
What was the name of the your band that you were in, or is it still around? Or
No, I was in a band called I Saw a Ghost
okay,
long time ago. We haven't, there's an album on iTunes for it. And then after we broke up, I joined another band called Lakeview
okay,
for a very short time. And then that was kind of, after that, that was kind of like my end of, I was like, man, the music thing ain't working out. So go back to my love of cars.
what style of music?
It was like I don't know. I guess back in they used to call it like screamo or whatever. But uh, but yeah, I mean, right now I'm in like a pop punk band that
Okay,
go back to my roots, I guess.
oh that's pretty cool, man. I don't have a musical bone in my body, but I enjoy music quite a bit, and yeah, I was into the bands that would frequent Warped Tour back in the day. So actually, I just saw this summer they had the Green Day, and it was Rancid that I
Oh,
was
yeah.
actually most excited to see. It was a good show. The whole show was pretty good, but I was pretty pumped to see Rancid. I'd never seen them. I used to listen to them back in high school, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, Rancid's awesome. I've only seen them once. I saw before their guitar player Tim was in the band. Uh, he was in Operation Ivy, and I did see
Okay.
them long, long time ago. But yeah,
Yeah, that's cool. I have some friends that are really talented musically, and I was always so jealous because everybody's different, and you have things that work for you and that don't work for you. And I, I tried a few times. I'm like, boy, this is just not for me. I'm gonna stick to cars.
and it's funny because all they're like two totally different like industries. Like
Uh-huh.
after being in the music industry and then coming back to the car industry, there's like some like weird similarities in some things that have like uh kind of like carried over, like I guess to like work ethic and like and then with the 3D printing stuff, just like the creativity portion of it, and it's
Sure.
interesting. So
Yeah. Did you write your own music or?
yeah, all
Huh.
the bands I've been in, we've all uh have done original stuff.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
on a whole nother level too. Like, like
There's just no, it's very hard to make money in the music industry.
oh,
Especially
I
it's
can
like
only imagine. So
yeah,
saturated.
yeah. Which like I don't know, sometimes I kind of feel that, there's a lot of stuff going in the auto industry, like the low prices and stuff like that, like the devaluing of stuff kind of seems like that's happening in some parts of the industry that I kind of called out, like with the music industry, which kind of screwed over the music industry. But I hope that
Okay.
doesn't happen to the auto industry.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's unfortunately plenty of that out there where stuff's
Yeah,
getting devalued because somebody found an easy way to do something and they're gonna make a quick buck. Um, yeah, there's plenty of that out there, but um, there's a number of us out there fighting the good fight too. So um, yeah, so the 3D printing thing, that's pretty cool too. Another thing that I don't know anything about, it's one of those items where I find it interesting, but I haven't looked into it at all. And I think mainly because I know a number of people who are, and so I've just been like, "Oh, you can make that? All right, cool." Like, well, whip that up. But how do you even get started with something like that?
so I started uh like I guess like my company or whatever, just making cables. I actually like just wanted to make some USB cables, and then some people started buying them, and but then I found like this, and at the time I wasn't playing music, so like I was trying to look for like a kind of like a creative outlet in a way, um, doing the cable thing. I've always wanted my own scope leads. I was like, started researching, like, I'm gonna make my own scope leads. So I started off with doing just a bunch of cables, because I've always made like audio cables and stuff like that, for people. So I kind of transferred to more like automotive testing cables. Then I saw a bunch of people 3D printing. I was like, this is pretty cool. And I originally got a printer just to like, I was gonna like print my own like connectors and stuff like that. But then like, we were all in like this 3D printing chat group with a couple other guys, and I don't know, one thing led to another. I got one. Um, never never used any like CAD software or anything. I used to be really
Okay.
good at like Photoshop and stuff. So I kind of picked it up pretty easy, but like um there was like a real cool like creative vibe to it. So like I really like connected with it, and I was like just started just like building, building, and then printing, and people obviously, I guess, like my stuff, so I just kept on printing more stuff.
Yeah. It is really cool all the stuff that you can make. I mean, even outside of the automotive industry, but within, I mean, you're mentioning connectors. I guess I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that's the thing is like you can make your own parts if given the right, skill and equipment, right? Like as long as you understand how it works, you can design kind of whatever you want. I mean, well, so the ones I see, it's using plastic. Is I assume there's
Yeah, so
bigger, more
there's
expensive versions that do more.
yeah, so you've got like I print with what they call it PETG, which is more a little bit more robust but easier to use filament. But they do have like more of like industry grade stuff like nylon, and then they could infuse it with carbon fiber. And
Mm,
nylon's like really strong, little bit harder to print. I have been like experimenting with some of more of the more engineering grade filaments. 'Cause I plan on doing some stuff with it that I've been thinking about, but it's kind of like a learning curve to get that filament to print properly, and it's very expensive just to like try it out versus like
yeah.
some of the other filaments which are a little bit more affordable.
Well, I was thinking about that. When I was just thinking about questions that I had about this area, and there's got to be a lot of trial and error. Like if you're going to design a new thing, right? I want to make a tool that does this or holds that. Like you have to design it from scratch. Maybe you have you got your measurements and stuff, but I mean, how much trial and error is there into designing a finished product?
So it depends. Like I've gotten to the point where I kind of know like the tolerances of my printer, and I used to just like design something and just print it. And then if it didn't work, I'd throw it away. And then like
Okay.
you'd have like a 10-hour print that was like a waste of whatever. But like if I've got like certain hole diameters for like nuts or bolts, I'll actually like print out a sheet that like a test sheet for certain things so I can if it's like 10 millimeters, but like I need to make it like 10.3 millimeters to get the tolerance correct, I'll do that now instead. But
Okay.
for the most part, like I've gotten I've gotten it pretty down as far as like at least the stuff that I make. Like if I need to expand on something, I've got it pretty laid out pretty good, like with templates that I've created to speed stuff up.
Is it just like a program, like you mentioned, the CAD program? I remember taking CAD in high school way back when, a couple courses. Is that the same idea as far as the
Yeah,
designing
so
goes?
I'm using Fusion 360, which is like kind of expensive, but that's just the first program I started with. There's a
Hmm.
bunch of other ones that I've thought about trying out, but I have so many files on Fusion 360 that like I'd have to like export them and then like just a bunch of stuff I don't want to deal with. I'm all about
Hmm.
like convenience and um, easy workflows. And right
Yeah.
now, like, although it is like a little bit pricey per month, like the workflow on it for me personally is very quick.
Yep. No, I totally get that. Pay for the convenience, or you pay for not having the inconvenience of switching over. Like I've had an iPhone since like 2008, and I'm not opposed to going to Android in any way, except for the fact that like all my stuff's been on Apple for all these years. I'm like, I don't want to switch all of it now. It's just I'm gonna keep going with it. They
Yeah,
got me locked in.
that's the same. I mean, I remember standing in line for the first one. I remember my first computer, which was like one of those G4 towers. It was like really slow and no one had one, but like for some reason I was like, I want this, and
Uh huh.
my parents got it for me. I think we had apples like at the school out the my middle school or whatever.
The
So I was
ones
like,
you could
oh
like see through.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we had those.
yeah, that was pretty cool. I was like, oh man, it's got a zip drive.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, just anything technology related, how it's progressed in our lifetime. I mean, is it the same with the 3D printers? Is the capabilities increasing all the time on that stuff too?
It appears to be. I mean, like, there's a couple brands out there now. Like Bamboo has been kind of like the new go-to because they're really quick. Um, I'm still using like Prusas, which are have been around for a long time, and I don't know, a lot of people as of recently have been kind of like hating on them because the Bamboos are so quick now. But I'm just used to them, and like like I said with like workflow, if I got like another printer, a different brand, I'd have to like uh, change my files over and like
Sure.
this all mine all share the same files now. It's like super convenient.
How many printers do you run right now?
I have four,
Okay.
um, which is not a whole lot for I guess like for printing a bunch of stuff, but they're all online, so like I have like a schedule for them. I'll print a couple at a time, but I'll schedule them so at night I'll print, or if it's a long print, I'll try to schedule where like if I'm gone for the day and I come home, then it'll be done. So I'm
Okay.
not like wasting time and stuff like that. But
Sure. How long does it take to like make one of the VCI mounts, for instance?
like 6 hours.
Okay.
For some of like the bigger ones, like the picoscope cases, they take about like 10 hours.
Oh wow.
But I've tuned most of my stuff to be pretty quick without degrading like the surface quality finish, which is like I'm very meticulous about on some stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Because
Um.
the faster you go, because you're melting plastic, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, like everyone's like battling over how fast you can print, but there's such a trade-off of like how fast you can melt that plastic and have layer adhesion between the
Mm.
layers versus like printing a little slower. Um, surface quality is a little better. It's not as you don't get much of a matte finish on it. But like for like some of the translucents I print, if you were to print it like a lot quicker, you wouldn't get that see-through quality.
Okay.
So I tend to print a little slower, a little hotter, um, and I really haven't had a lot of very little. Hey, this thing broke on me or whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
very
Those
little.
those VCI mounts are freaking awesome. By the way, if anybody has
Thank you.
um like the MDI or VCM or the pastors for programming with the magnetic mounts. Um, I'm sure it's different in a shop if you have a case for it or something. But man, doing mobile, like it made use of the space in the van that it wasn't being used otherwise. Plus, it's like wrapped up, organized, and it's not like bouncing around anywhere in the
Yeah,
van. So like, it's perfect for that.
sweet, awesome. Love to hear that. Yeah,
Yeah,
because like
yeah,
I love magnets. Like I've always loved
yeah. Right.
magnets, just because it's like I don't know, it's like almost magical, but like it just
Mm-hmm.
snaps to the wall and you can take it on and off without any other, you know, doohickeys, like extra mounts or like anything. It's
Yeah.
just all in one, very slim. Um,
Right,
and
and
it's got
you have another one, and like I can just like kind of rearrange them. I don't have to like drill holes or anything like that. So
exactly.
that's yeah, yeah. No, that's 100%
Well,
the way to go.
the original idea uh, was that they were going to drill into like a pegboard, um,
Mm, okay.
and then you can snap them in and out. But then I was like, didn't really like that too much because like then I'd worry about it flexing too much and like flexing like over time and wear, because it is still plastic.
Yep.
Um, and I was like, well, if it just stays on there. Um, and then I got the bungee idea because, I noticed on all the VCIs we have in our shop, they all coil a certain way, and I was always like wrapping them up like in the back of my head like a certain way. And I was like, well, if I just had like a bungee that went this way, and then I added the bungee, and
Yeah.
I don't know,
That's that is the
everyone
way to
seems to love
go.
it.
Yep, for sure. Um, and I did it, I just kind of trial run in my van, put them up, and so um, I was talking to my guys the other day. I'm like, hey, you guys, do you want some of these? We'll order some because it's definitely the way to go. It's funny though, because so I've got 3 vans on the road, me and 2 other guys, and we all have different tendencies for our organization and how we like things, which is totally fine. It's like a toolbox, right? And like you're gonna set up your toolbox the way you want. And one of my guys, he's team Milwaukee pack out, and like
Oh
everything's
yeah.
in a pack out, and that's cool. Like I told him whatever works for you, but I'm not so much. I have one pack out like for specific things, and the rest of my stuff I keep either on shelves or cases or something like that. But anyways, I was showing him these things, and I got that dongle one too, which is freaking awesome for the little ones because I never had a
Oh
good
yeah.
place for those. They're not a good spot in the van. I had them in like a laptop case or bag, which was like, it's okay, but now they're just mounted up right there on the shelf and grab them as I need them. It looks clean. Definitely the way to go.
Yeah, I love staying organized at work. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
weird. Like if I could like teach a class on just like proficiency and like staying organized, like I would love to do that, but I don't know how that'd be like a cool class. But I mean, it's crazy. Like when I first like started the dealer, like I wasn't that organized. Like I had like shit everywhere, and then I kind of felt like as soon as I like started like getting a little bit more organized, like you know,
Yep.
like proficiency went up, I guess.
Oh, 100%. When I was flat rate at Firestone, I noticed a difference when I was being organized with my tools versus not. Because you waste so much time repetitively, even if it's a small amount of time, searching for that one 10 millimeter socket because it's not in the spot where it's supposed to be, if you have it at all. But it's buried somewhere under a bunch of other tools, and you're wasting all kinds of time trying to find something over
Yeah.
and over again rather than it's all organized, you know where it is, you put it back, and it adds up at the end of the day for if you're under the gun on productivity like most of us are.
Yes, I also don't have like I have like simple rules for like my carts. Like, some people like overload them. Like if I always like say like if I don't use like a certain tool like at least like once a week, it doesn't, even if it's a like a diagnostic tool, it doesn't stay in my diag cart because my cart just gets heavy, and like I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of a shorter guy, and I don't like pushing like this giant like
Yeah.
pyramid of a
I,
cart around with that's heavy at least.
I see those carts at the shops that I go to, and they have like, this attachment and this thing hanging off of the top. And it reminds me of like the Bloody Marys that you get that have like a freaking cheeseburger and cheese and a sausage like all piling out of the top. But
Yeah, like I mean, like I have like a boom kit, but like I don't,
sure.
like I keep 4 scope leads on them and like
Hmm.
and a couple little doohickeys. That's about it. Not like 400 cables.
Right, right. Yeah, keep it simple, and but yeah, organization is key, and we found that with the vans too, is just everything has its place. I got a nice shelf set up now for the inside of my transit. I actually ended up going with like 3 different shelves because I only had one to start, and then I was kind of just using the rest of the space the best that I could. But I found having 3 shelves in there was the best way to go, and then that way I could have everything organized on the shelves. And I was first thinking like everything was just gonna like topple over or move around. But if you set it up right, And like I have some bungees and stuff. You can get everything to stay in place pretty easily.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about like having a van that's all metal and magnets
Mm-hmm.
just just attached to anything metal. So
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And the shelving's metal, so I can utilize that space on the sides of them too that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So yeah,
sweet.
that's cool stuff. Where have you gotten your ideas for the stuff that you made um for the 3D printing?
So like the VCI clasps I make, like me and Isaac actually like kind of like were brainstorming one like long time like 3 years ago I think,
Okay.
and I had like a different holder that I ended up not I kind of discontinued it because it looked like other people's and I was like I don't want to go this route, so I started my own, and Isaac had like he's like, why don't you make it attached to the pegboards or whatever, and I was like, I don't really want to do the pegboard thing. I already had like the the clasp like design, and I just added magnets in the bungee, and that was kind of it. The thing that holds a smaller VCI, like the little dongles or whatever. I don't
Uh
even
huh.
know how I thought of that. I think like the rods that you get them with are rods that you use for a 3D printer.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was just kind of like looking at like my 3D printer one day, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool if like you know I could slide back and forth something to hold the little VCIs or whatever. Because I was making these little they were just like little rectangles that had the OBD2 cutout in them.
Uh huh.
Um, and I was like, man, I'd rather just like have like one system where you can expand it and not have all these like little things lying around. Um,
This episode is brought to you by L1 Automotive Training and Keith Perkins. If you're looking for education on module programming, J2534, EEPROM work, key and immobilizer, electrical diagnostics, or drivability diagnostics, Keith has a website, l1training.com, that's got over 60 hours of training videos on all those subjects and more. When I first started out doing mobile, I utilized Keith's videos on module programming in J2534 in order to get my head wrapped around what I would need for the tooling, the computers, the software setups, what kind of obstacles I would be up against when I'm out there programming modules on cars. And it was a huge benefit to me. And I continue to use the training videos that he has on his website. So I strongly recommend checking out l1training.com. The link is in the show notes.
so that's how I created that one. Um, but really just kind of like tinkering around like on Infusion, or if like sometimes out of necessity at work, kind
Sure.
of come up with something, and like, oh man, this kind of sucks doing this every day. Like
Yeah.
having to
I
like,
wish I had a blank to do this. Yeah.
yeah, I'll like go home and maybe spend like an hour or two kind of just brainstorming. Um, but
Have you
I
had any
usually,
requests from people to like make something specific?
yeah. So I've done a couple requests. Mike Reynolds had a couple things I made for him for his van, and he had like this maintainer setup that each of his vans had. I made like a mount to attach like a hose reel to like the maintainer, so he could just like with a handle, so you can pick up the hose reel, not hose reel, but the electrical cord reel and the maintainer, and just like bring it to wherever you need it. Um,
Nice.
but I mean, like a lot of the VCI clasps, um, besides like the normal ones, because we have all the major ones at the store, but there have been a few that like I think a couple HD heavy duty stuff that like I've never even seen before. I've had people send me, and you know now I've got it down where like probably about a weekish, maybe a few days I can like get one pretty close, like in one like about one or two prototypes, and it's like perfect fit.
Nice.
Um, but I'm always like, I like the custom requests because it's like, it's definitely like creative and everything. And I like just tinkering like that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's pretty cool. Um, so the shop that you're at now, you said you're in Maryland, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Is that's Julio's shop that you're at now?
Yeah, I work at a place called Omega Auto Works in Laurel,
Okay.
Maryland. But yeah,
Okay.
Julio, I've been there for about, I think, four and a half years now. Um, it's funny how I met Julio. I was at Toyota. Um, I was with Toyota for like 6 or 7 years, I think. Uh, was in Richmond, Virginia. Then I ended up moving to Maryland with my wife and went to a dealership here. COVID hit, and a little bit before COVID, I was actually trying to have Brandon Steckler come to the dealership and teach a pressure transducer class.
Okay.
It had to be rescheduled, and then then it got canceled. But I met Julio because he bought a ticket to it, and I think
Oh,
I ended up noticing that it was like right around the corner from my house, like not even like 10 minutes away. And I stopped in to give him like the book and a ticket. Um, and I just started talking to him and like, hey, we might be looking, can't hire you right now. And I honestly, I didn't really think, coming from a dealer world, going to like an independent shop, that he would have called me back. But then, like right when COVID started, I guess to be okay, he called me back, and it was way better situation than
yeah.
Toyota was. So I took it, and I was extremely scared to go to a independent shop because I've only ever worked on Toyotas.
Okay.
But I really liked just diagnosing cars. I'm not a super fast R&R guy, which kind of like sucks at the dealer.
Mm-hmm.
When everyone's like go 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 and like let's get
Yep.
this engine in and let's get this engine in
Right.
1 hour and we're good to go. So
Yeah. Is that what you do at his place mainly? Is diagnostics?
yeah, I work like right next to Julio, so it's me and him do majority of it. Um,
Okay.
he does more of the European stuff because it is like a European centric store, but we do a lot of all makes and models.
Yeah, I mean, he's got just about every make and model covered with the
Yeah, he's
factory stuff.
yeah, I think we're like 90% factory tooled as far
Yeah.
as like, software and uh like special tools and everything like that.
Yeah, and how cool of a thing to be at an independent shop that has that stuff. Like I remember back in the day working at an independent shop, and oh, here's your OTC scan tool. Work on everything. Good luck.
Yeah, like when I can't like when I can't find stuff real easy, like quick, uh I'm like, oh, I get so like discouraged sometimes and like then I like start thinking of like different ways to get it and then like I get off track. But like with like the OE tooling, it's like you log in, if I need a connector, it's right there. It's very easy to
Yeah,
find. I don't
yeah,
have to
no
like
kidding.
do like 500 side quests just to find the connector I'm looking for in the pin mount.
And especially with European stuff, like I couldn't believe the difference going from everything I had done previously with Volkswagen Audi to having Otis. And like, oh my god, these cars aren't hard to work on at all. You
Yeah,
just need the factory tool, and it's a complete game changer. Which isn't the case for every make and model. Sometimes you get the factory set up, and you're like, oh, this is exactly the same as the
it's cra
aftermarket, but
it's
European
cra
seems to be that way.
yeah, it's crazy coming from the dealer too, because like when I was a dealer, like I mean, I would think I was like a pretty good tech, um, I guess I was always held in high regard with like diags and um I think I was like on like in our region, like the only tech that wasn't like a master or whatever, a master certified for Toyota that was allowed to do DPRs, which are product. When you find weird stuff on new cars, you can submit like product enhancements and like how you found it. And they let me do
Okay.
that even though I wasn't a master, which I thought was cool. But it's crazy coming from Toyota to like independent shops and like working on Chryslers. It's like, man, I've never seen this happen before.
Yeah.
It's like I've only heard about this in like books, you know?
So it's funny you say that. So my newest employee, Andrew, he came from a Toyota dealership, same thing, and that's where he'd spend the majority of his career was just working on Toyotas, and now he's in the independent, and not only the independent, but like we're doing mobile diagnostics, we're taking on weird stuff, but he said pretty much the same thing that you said, that like I'd only ever heard about this particular thing happening, but this didn't happen on Toyotas. And
Yeah.
even some Toyotas, there's been a couple where like he didn't see that stuff in the dealership because this is now, 200,000 mile stuff that doesn't necessarily go to the dealer, not very often. And so it's
Yeah.
like a whole different world that he's having to take on. He's doing a great job with it, but it is just a completely different animal.
Yeah, I always tell PJ, because that's how like I kind of like found out about all the like the aftermarket training and like the pressure transducers and stuff was through PJ, when he was at Toyota. And, but I always joke with him because, there's like this, dealer tech, indie tech, like feud.
Yeah.
I get like imaginary feud.
Yeah.
Uh, it's always funny to like stir the pot with that on stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Right. It's just like anything else, cops and firefighters, or it's like we're all doing our thing, but yeah, you kind of want to like, oh, hey,
Because a
we're
lot of
independent techs are the best.
it's funny because like a lot of TSBs come from um, you know a dealer tech getting no pay, no warranty pay to figure out a problem, which ends up ultimately making life easier for everyone.
Yeah, I was just talking to somebody the other day. I forget who it was, but they said something about. He's like, "Yeah, I like had this problem, and then like 6 months later, it was a TSB." I was like,
I
"Oh,
I worked with a guy when I was in Richmond. Um, his name is Lydell, but there's a TSB on some of the older like V8s that with the whatchamacallit, the secondary air valves, they'll get wet and then bring down the 5-volt reference. But that's his
okay,
TSB. And I think when that first model came out, he was like the first one that found it. Um, and it ended up turning into a TSB, which I
okay."
thought was cool. But
Oh,
yeah,
dude,
now
those secondary air things. I imagine you guys have seen just a ton of them, but I've got my ass kicked on a couple of those Toyotas. I think it was the first one. The first one that really kicked my ass was it was like they put all aftermarket brand new stuff in there, and that doesn't work on. I think it was a Tundra or Tacoma or whatever, but you have to put it in all factory stuff or it ain't happening. We found
yeah.
that out eventually.
Yeah, some of that's man, that was the one thing that sometimes gets me is like some of these parts even now are like even the new parts are kind of not that great.
Yeah, 100%. Even stuff from the dealer right now is we don't know if it's any good. I think the one I was thinking about, it was watching the like pressure pulsations with a pressure sensor when the air pump was on and the diverter valve was open and stuff, and like those weren't just quite what the computer was looking for with the aftermarket stuff. Even though it was working, like it was getting
Yeah.
air into the exhaust, it was doing its thing. Those like pulsations weren't quite right, so it would code and then it would go into limp mode. So like it wasn't even just the check engine light. It's like they can't drive this vehicle until it's right. And I'm like, yeah, you have to buy all that stuff from the dealer. Sorry.
I've never had one that I've seen that like was a no start because of it, but most of the ones I
Okay.
see either like are blocked up with carbon on the backside or some of the foam from the air pump gets
Wedged
deter
in there.
wedged in there and whatnot.
Yeah, and it's a super easy access place too, right underneath the intake manifold. So,
Yeah.
yep.
But I don't know, I maybe it's just because I worked at Toyota for so long, but like comparing them to like a lot of other vehicles, like I feel like they're just like easy to like imagine in my head and take apart. I don't know. It's
Sure.
probably because I've worked at the dealer for a while, but
Yeah, yeah, it
I feel
makes
like
a
every
difference.
I feel like everything just makes a little bit more sense. It's like, oh, that's
Yep.
why the oil filter's there.
It was like that way for me with GM, but I was independent, but GM was like the most common vehicle I saw, and I was like, well, this just makes sense the way that they put things together, and then this BMW, this Volkswagen is completely ass backwards. But yeah, I'm sure it's all about what you're used to, what you work on.
Yeah.
Did you do a lot of the like hybrid work when you were at Toyota?
I started to, but like, because like, you're supposed to be like hybrid certified at Toyota before you touch any of the actual hybrid stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
didn't do too much while I was there. I've done more stuff like away from the dealer,
Okay. Do you guys see a
mostly
lot of it in the
Prius,
shop you're in now?
Priuses. Yeah, we get a lot of Priuses. We've had, we do get quite a bit of Teslas in.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
was just gonna ask you guys doing Tesla.
I know Julio's had a few rear drive units fail for isolation faults.
Okay.
Um, I think the last isolation fault I had was on a Prius for the transaxle had an
Mm-hmm.
isolation fault, but yeah, nothing too crazy on them though. Pretty simple
Yeah,
stuff to be honest.
yeah. And most of the time, once you get into it, it really isn't too crazy complicated. I mean, all of the isolation faults that I've had to deal with, which haven't been that many, but it's all been, you follow the process, and okay, that's the part,
That's
replace
actually the
it. All right.
first trans I've seen with a Prius that had an isolation fault. A lot of them that I've like seen have just been like coolant in the AC compressor uh,
Okay.
connector from someone, putting an engine in or something like that, and then it because we get a lot of sublets from a lot of the surrounding stores, and we
Sure.
get some interesting thing. It's real cool because like I said, like when I was at Toyota, I never saw anything cool. It was like the same thing over and over. But I do get to see a lot of interesting stuff that like makes you think and makes you kind of feel stupid at the same time. Like, oh, man, damn, this is weird.
So I got a shop that does quite a few Priuses specifically. Like they're just kind of known in the area. They take on Toyota hybrid stuff, and the Prius is probably the most common one. Um, we had a trans there that had isolation fault, and this was more than an isolation fault. It was like directly shorted to the case of the transmission on all three phases. Because once I got
Oof.
into testing, I'm like, am I doing this right? Because I could just it was like 0 ohms across there. I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Is my meter broken? Am I doing the test wrong? No, there was some carnage inside of that one. That was definitely the worst
Like a
that
bot
I'd ever seen.
was like accident repair or something probably.
It didn't seem like it, but something very bad happened. Something just let loose completely in that transmission. What was the other one we had there recently? Oh, so it was so they you go to try to start it right, and the engine wasn't turning over, but you could see MG1.
Uh,
MG1 is that the one on the back of the motor?
yeah, so I actually had I think I had a Prius at the dealer that early, kind of early, like when I started working at a dealer that was like a no start.
Uh
Um,
huh.
and I wasn't like super familiar with it. And I was like, man, I can't tell if this engine is running or not. But like there was like no math flow or anything like that. It ended up being a math sensor actually, because
Okay.
it would like start up and then die. and it couldn't reach its target RPM. So it was just the transactional spinning. But like,
Sure.
you just kind of hear it and you're like, is this running or not? But
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Like I've had plenty of those where they're like the fuel pump will go out and you think
yeah,
it's running, but it's not.
just
Uh,
like spinning.
yeah, yeah, and so we've got some methods to like try to actually figure out like, oh, is this actually running or is it just cranking the engine? But this one, like the engine wasn't actually moving, but you could see MG1 moving, which isn't supposed to happen because they're supposed to be together. Like when I think I'm right on MG1 being the one that's on the back, but it's the one that's connected to the back of the motor, and like they're not supposed to move separately. And so they took it apart because we were like, hey, something's broken inside of there. We can see the RPM of this motor, but obviously the engine's not spinning. And the little like stub shaft that went into the back of the motor had just clean snapped right off. And so MG1 was spinning, but then the rest of it wasn't. That was pretty crazy. I had a picture of that somewhere, but
Yeah, I know those dampers, the springs fail on them sometimes.
that's kind of what we were thinking.
I wonder if
Like,
that.
hey, something, something, let loose with this assembly or whatever. And that's what they ended up finding out when they took it all apart. We had a Lexus. It was I'm trying to think of what the model was. It was a sedan of some sort, hybrid. It's a similar situation where it would just turn over the inside of the trans, but the motor wasn't moving, and then just eventually drain down the battery, and that's a pain in the ass once that gets discharged. So
Oh yeah, anything hybrid that's got a bad battery is a pain in the ass to like move, or
yeah,
especially like on a Prius, and you got the rear hatch doesn't open, and
yep, yep,
you want to get to the battery.
uh
You're
huh,
like, you gotta crawl through like the piles of clothes or whatever, and to get to the battery in the back. If you for the low voltage battery.
yeah, yeah. I was considering getting a like a rescue charger for the high voltage side of things to be able to charge those up, but it
So
wasn't quite
we
worth
had
the money.
we had we there was a rescue charger at the dealer, and that same one I was talking about with the math, it would
Yeah,
like you'd start it up, but then like it would drain the battery, and you had to keep on rescue charging it. And
yeah.
I think you charge it up for like 4 hours, you'd only get like
You get one
a
shot.
couple like one shot, and then dude, that's
Yep.
such a pain in the butt.
Yep. So that's what we run up against is so these independent shops, which a lot of them, aren't prepared at all. They'll just crank, 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 try to start this thing, try to start this thing. Then they'll call us and like maybe we have one chance at it by the time we get there, or the battery's completely, discharged to the point where it won't crank. And so, we're like, well, hey, you got to take care of this, and then we have to figure out why the ice wasn't starting. That was my thought is like, okay, well, if I had a rescue charger, at least, hey, let's get it to the point that we can do our testing and then, yeah, get as many things connected to it as possible for those limited amount of cranks that you have.
We have a rescue charger for Ford.
Okay.
We bought, I think Julio got it for like one vehicle because we needed it. So we bought
Okay.
one, but we've only used it once for it was like one time use for that vehicle. I know on Hyundai, I believe Hyundai and Kia, you can as long as it hasn't dropped down to like I think past like 15% or 20%, I think you can bypass it and let the engine start up and recharge. Um,
Yeah, there's like a scan tool like force it to
yeah,
crank over, which is
but
nice.
but I think all the ones I've only been able to do it once because like all the ones I've gotten are like just just past it.
Uh-huh.
Like I
Yep.
was like two starts away from someone else starting it that I would be able to trigger that uh, force start or whatever.
It seems like all the Hyundais that I run into in that situation are just out of gas. Like it's happened to me like 3 times where I'm just
Yeah,
like,
or out of oil, out of gas,
yeah,
out of
well,
oil.
that too. There's the clunk. That's another one. Um, yeah.
I kind of feel like like most of my tickets I get, it's always like needs an engine because like it's like either like a Chrysler that's like locked up, or like a Hyundai that's locked up, or
Mm-hmm.
we get a lot of like engine failures because with
We
like auctions and stuff like that, and
Yep.
you know, like I wish like if everyone could like just know how to do a relative compression test,
Uh,
or like it would probably save a lot of time, having
just
to,
just listen to it. Yeah, crank it
yeah.
over and listen to it. Yeah, it's amazing. We have a ton of that too. Is we get called in, hey, this thing's misfiring. We put coils and plugs and injector and it's still misfiring. And okay, you have low compression. And it usually has a 3.6 on it some way or another, whether it be GM or Chrysler. It's usually a 3.6 and it's got low
I've
compression
had a
somehow or
string
another.
of lately. I haven't seen for a while there. I was just getting Chrysler after Chrysler after Chrysler with the camshaft. Um, but like I think the new trend right now for me, I've been getting a lot of Fords with a blown number three head gasket. I know they've got
Mm,
like I know they've got the TSB on the short blocks, but that's what I've been getting. A lot of Ford Edges, Ford Fusions with the EcoBoost with coolant
sure.
pouring into cylinder three.
Ye- Yeah, I just had a Ford. I think it was a Fusion not that long ago. I've also been having that on the like 18 Pacificas, almost specifically. I've had three of them
Yeah,
recently. Where
we had
the
one. Same thing. We actually had one that got we towed over from another shop. It had just needed uh, the little fuse uh, housing on top of the battery that breaks all the time because you too many ugga duggas. Um, it just needed that. But as soon as
yeah,
I replaced it, started it up, pile of white smoke coming out. Needs a head
sure.
gasket.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
misfire and smells like
it's like, well, your car
syrup
starts
and
now, but needs an engine.
yep. Yeah, and those have been just cake because it's just yeah, put a borescope down in there. Okay, it's full of coolant. All right, moving on.
Oh yeah, then you got to deal with warranty.
That's the nice part about doing the mobile is I don't have to worry
Or
about the
insurance. I
repair.
guess insurance adjusters. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, right.
sometimes they get under my skin.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine. There's one nice thing about just going doing the diag. Here you go. All right, see you later.
Well,
Have
it's like,
fun.
you get the car, and even if you know it's insurance, it's
Uh
like,
huh.
you almost have to do the diag twice because you have to diag it. Then they want to like, and then if you do the fancy like easy diet, like if you use a scope to speed things up or whatever, with a lot of them don't know any of what a relative compression test looks like.
Right, right. They
They're
want
like,
the
oh,
hard
well,
way.
I want to see inside the cylinder. Okay, well, here's four pictures of like the score cylinder walls, but then like, no, we need to see it. So like they'll come down. I'll have to like retake, the coils out or plugs, and then they want to videotape uh, my boroscope camera. So it's like, so you got like picture and picture and picture and picture of like the coolant leaking in. It's like, why don't you guys just come down and like, I'll do the diag with you the first time.
Sure. Yeah.
And then they always come at lunchtime. It's like, oh, hey, I'm here. It's like, okay, I'm about to go to lunch.
Ugh. Yeah, we had to deal a lot with the third party warranty companies, and I also don't miss that because that was always the hassle. They wanted to fight you on everything, and
It's
yeah.
crazy. Like it's like I'll get some that are like real talkative and like go into detail, more detail than like I really want to. And then like
Hmm.
I'll get some guys where it's like, oh, cool. See ya. And like I'm like, all right.
Well, no matter the profession, there's always varying degrees of how much you care about your job. So,
Yeah.
well, yeah. Cool, man. You got anything else to add, or well, actually, you know what we should do? Where can people go if they want to find your stuff,
Oh yeah.
stuff that we've been talking about? And I'll put the link in the show notes, but you can tell
Yeah,
everybody here.
that'd probably be important. Yeah, you just go to Derail Diagnostics, and that's how you pronounce it, Derail. I hear a lot of people like Derail, but it's Derail
Okay.
because
Okay.
Derail, like some when I worked at Goodyear, the guy that I apprenticed for used to call me Derail,
Okay.
and then like everybody started calling me that, and then everyone like ended up finding out, and then like it's just like that's how everyone has known me, at least on the personal side,
Hmm.
for since like I don't know, since like high school. But yeah, it's just a derail, like DRAIL diagnostics.com.
Perfect. Perfect.
And then the
Yeah.
the www dot stuff and everything in front of that.
Cool. And you got your whole list of stuff on there on the website and everything, so people can check it out. And yeah, like I said, VCI mounts, highly recommended. They're awesome.
Yeah, and I do, like I do custom requests. Like if someone needs something, I have no problem uh tackling that. Um yeah, but please buy them. I like not only do I like selling them, I like seeing that like people like um, actually get use out of them
For
because
sure.
that's more important to me is it's cool to create stuff and like I'm gonna create this to sell it, but I also like creating stuff just to improve stuff. Um,
Hmm.
and that circles back to the like I guess the correlation between like music and like I still make music and I don't get paid anything. It's just fun. And
Hmm.
I like making products that like I know I can use, not just making products that just to make them to make a buck. Like all the stuff like we use all my stuff in the shop. I mean like my boss, Julio, the other guy, we all have diag carts with my stuff on them. Pretty much everything is got clasps on it and everything. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah, to see something you make and other people get use out of it, it's pretty cool. I gotta send you a picture of the back of my van. I'll do that after
awesome.
we wrap this up.
Cool. Yeah, and the same thing, website. You can follow me on, the TikTok or actually I don't post too much on there.
Okay.
TikTok's still kind of new to me, not to sound like
Yeah.
old or anything, but like I've
Well,
been on
I've refused to do it, so I'm even older. I
I post more on like Instagram a lot,
okay.
just because I mean I've been on social media for like especially because like music and stuff. Social media is like so intertwined for such a long time with that. But
You're a MySpace guy.
oh yeah, I was on MySpace all the time. Bulletin post, taking you off my top eight. Like,
Yep. Yep. Uh,
so yeah,
yep. Well, thank you for spending some time with me tonight. That's great getting to meet you and talk to you. That's really cool. And again, appreciate the products. They're awesome. So thank
sweet.
you.
Yeah, thank you for buying them.
No problem. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much to Darrell for spending some time with me. Make sure to check out the link in the show notes if you're interested in any of the products that he offers. But also like to thank everybody for listening. And with that all out of the way, let's get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.